Hey, you. Yeah, you. Do you know what train this is? Yeah, train. Do you know what train this is?
Of course. It's a magic train.
Yeah, kid, shut up.
Actually, it's a Baldwin 284 S3 class Berkshire type steam locomotive. Built in 1931 as the Baldwin Locomotive Works. It weighs 456,100 pounds.
Okay. Yeah, sure, but what does that mean? And is that even right? Let's break it down. What's up, nerds? I'm Alex from I Think I'm a Nerd, and today I want to find out what type of train the Polar Express actually is. The nerd in the movie calls it a Baldwin 284 S3 class Berkshire type steam locomotive built in 1931 to Baldwin Locomotive Works. It weighs 456,100 pounds. Firstly, a Baldwin train refers to the company that built it. As he later explains, the Baldwin Locomotive Works was one of the three giants in the historic world of train manufacturers, the other two being American Locomotive Company and Lima Locomotive Works. Next, 284 refers to the wheel count of the engine. It uses the White notation started by Frederick Meth Van White in a December 1900 editorial in American Engineer and Railroad Journal. The notation is used to describe wheel orientation. In the case of the Polar Express, the locomotive has 2 unpowered leading wheels, followed by 8 coupled and powered driving wheels, and 4 trailing wheels. S3 class just refers to the specific model of locomotive, and we'll get back to this. A Berkshire type simply means that it has a 284 arrangement. This type of train is named after the Berkshire Hills in western Massachusetts, where the first locomotives of this type were successfully tested. Built in 1931 and weighs 456,100 pounds, which is a little more than 228 tons. All this said, I would like to make some arguments against the nerd. He says it's a Baldwin S3 class. This would specifically refer to a series of Berkshire locomotives ordered by the Erie Railroad in 1928, which could reasonably be assumed to be built in 1931. Unfortunately, all S1 through S4 class locomotives from Erie Railroad were scrapped between the years of 1950 and 1952. If the Polar Express were to be a S3 class Baldwin, the nerd got one piece of information wrong. They do not weigh 456,100 pounds, they weigh 461,000 pounds. But I don't even think that's the right locomotive. Here's a picture of an Erie S3 class engine. And there are 2 key differences. 1, the sections of the running board are disconnected. 2, the sandbox and the steam dome are in the wrong spot. On the Erie 3376, our example train, the sandbox is at the front. You can tell because of the sand lines. The Polar Express has the sand lines coming from the middle dome, also notably with 4 of them rather than 2. The sandboxes are used to drop sand on the rails in front of the driving wheels if the rails are slick or wet. We can't name any specific railroad for the Polar Express because the Polar Express doesn't have any railroad name on the coal tender, but rather the name of the train itself. Therefore, we can look at any railroad in the country. So, there is an S3 class locomotive that looks more like the Polar Express, but it is not Baldwin. The New York, Chicago, and St. Louis Railroad, dubbed the Nickel Plate Road, had 10 Lima Locomotive Works S3 class Berkshire locomotives built in 1949. The 779 being the last locomotive built by Lima, it is also the only S3 preserved. It looks a lot more like the Polar Express, including the connected running boards and the placement of the sandbox and 2 steam domes. However, the front has a more predominantly domed smokebox door and 2 headlamps rather than 1. The animators of the movie did in fact base it off of a Berkshire locomotive. This one. Lima's Pierre Marquette 284 N1 class Berkshire steam locomotive number 1225. It is the closest in resemblance and has been dubbed the real Polar Express. It was built in 1941 for the Pierre Marquette Railroad, which is in Michigan, where the boy lives in Grand Rapids. The train was moved to the Chesapeake and Ohio Railway in 1947, which means you can technically call it a Kanawha rather than a Berkshire, which makes the nerd boy even more wrong. But ultimately, it doesn't matter. The Polar Express is a magic train. It represents hope, faith, self-discovery, adventure, and Christmas spirit. Don't be pedantic. Be loving. Merry Christmas, everyone, and Happy New Year.